What's going on, everybody? This is Brandon Scott, and welcome to Kickback Conversations. I'm here with my good friend, Holly Noon.
Hey.
Holly is somebody who helps people get their careers on track and coaching them in a variety of different ways. So we're excited to have her for this fun-filled episode. So this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about, should you ask how much that person is making, your whoever that person is when you're dating them. So we're going to just jump right on in. Like, Holly, first of all, what's going on? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm excited for this conversation.
Yes. I know. We're going to get into it. Hopefully, everybody will still like us after we
right?
tell our truth, right? But yeah. Sorry. So, Holly, what's the purpose of that? Like, I've never understood the purpose of asking how much someone makes. What do you think the purpose of that is?
I mean, I think it is just kind of to make sure, if you imagine your life a certain way, right? Like, is this person going to meet that criteria? Like, I want to live in the suburbs, or I want to live a certain lifestyle. And is this person going to fit in with that? So,
yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah. I mean, because I always ask like, even my clients that, like, why are you asking that question, right? What's the purpose of you asking that question? Are you trying to size somebody up? You trying to see what they work with? Because here's the thing, my thing is always like, if you're asking that question and, somebody says, I don't know, whatever figure that is, you don't always like calculate debt too, right? So some people who actually make a lot of money got a lot of debt to go with that too. They're like, nope, I got about 300,000 to go with it too,
Yes, absolutely. No, absolutely.
Yeah. So also, like, when should we ask that question? I think that's the question I want to know in your perspective as a lady, as somebody who works in the in career field. Like, when do you feel like people should ask that question?
I think that depends, but for me personally, I'd probably say at a year. If your guys are thinking like, okay, we've been together a year, we're thinking this is going to be something that's long-term, permanent, then that's when you want to maybe start talking about, okay, what does integrating our life look like? Finance-wise, like, are we on the same page?
Okay.
How much debt you got? Like, I think those are when you start asking those kind of questions. If you're thinking about moving in with somebody, sharing bills, who's going to pay what, how much? I think, that's kind of, because I always think a year is a good time to assess, right?
Yeah.
You've got to get out of the honeymoon phase. A year, you're like, okay, we've been on many dates. We've maybe gone on a trip or two.
Right.
And you realize like, okay, maybe there's something here long-term. We made it a year. Maybe we could make it another year. So that's
knock on wood,
for me,
right?
a year. Yeah.
So I think I agree with you. I feel like once it's been established that you two are moving forward in a more serious way and more substantive way, because I feel like asking somebody at happy hour how much they make when I just met them 20 minutes ago, I don't think that's appropriate. You know what I mean? And I've seen people do it, and they're like, oh, yeah, so how much you make? Whatever. And it's like, that's just, I just don't think that's a good guideline of when you should ask. I think, to your point, a year is a good time. My grandmother always told me it takes 4 seasons to really get to know people, And you see some people are really happy in certain seasons. Some people have life events that you don't know about, trauma that you don't know about that triggers at certain parts of the year. You got to get to know somebody. So I think 4 seasons of really understanding that kind of stuff. But I think sometimes people jump the gun of asking that way too soon about somebody's pockets. And here's the other thing. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of times people ask that question, and let's say that salary that they respond with is much lower than you expected. You're like, whoa. You don't factor in other things, because how much you make is not always your income. It could be you have a trust, you have things, you know what I mean? There's so many other things that you have. You have investment properties that you get income from. So how much you make usually is talking about how most people look at it as far as that one career or one job. Absolutely. And it's a lot more nuanced than that.
No, I definitely agree. I think that's And I think that's the narrative, like maybe 10, 20 years ago, especially if you're a millennial,
Right.
coming into like early Gen X or like older, like the younger Gen X side of things where you're kind of that border. I kind of feel like that was weird. You go to college, these jobs pay this range, and you know, entrepreneurship, it's like, oh, only a few people take that route and take that risk. And so I think sometimes it's that narrative that we've had in our head that, okay, the accountants and lawyers and attorneys, doctors, you know, they make this amount of money. And so if you date these kind of people, which we found out, I mean, people can be, you know, an insurance adjuster, and because they're independent and they go all over the place and make a lot of money in 6 months, you know, they don't even have to work all year because they made 6 figures in a short amount of time. So, I think people got properties and people got like investments.
But you hit on something too, and I don't want to. I want to do a small commercial because that's not on topic. But I got to bring this up. I just don't understand how colleges and universities don't have more entrepreneurship programs, because if we're talking about people becoming job creators in a society, we're teaching all these people how to be employees. Like, you're going to be a great employee, but how do you become a job creator? How do you be somebody who actually can employ other people in many regards? And I don't think that they do enough of that. So that's a whole other thing. I just want to put a little quick commercial in there because it bothers me.
Listen, I feel you as someone who like helps people with their careers. Like, I think that there's that piece to it, right? Yeah. That the narrative is changing, that, you know, people can have multiple careers, you know?
Yes.
At one time. So,
a jack of all trades.
Yes.
So, all right. So what's the wrong answer? So let's say, you know, somebody asks that person like, hey, you know, how much do you make? You know, what is the wrong answer? That's the thing that I'm trying to figure out here. Because if there's a right answer, it has to be a wrong one, right? Is it the one you don't want to hear?
Yes, the one you don't want to hear. I would feel like if there was a wrong answer, I feel like you probably wouldn't have made it at that point. You know, like, I don't know. I feel like everything would have just not worked out. If you think that the answer probably wasn't going to be what you want. But I think really I think it would be more like if you, as the person who asked the question, and you didn't hear what you wanted to hear, what would you do then in that scenario? Like, that's how I think of it. It's like, okay, this guy's great, blah, blah. Oh my gosh, he just told me he's, you know, a truck driver and only makes $25,000. Mind you, we know truck drivers can make way more than that.
Yes.
But that's just like an example. And like, and then everything that maybe, mind you, she's taking her on trips, she's paying for everything. So she maybe has no indication. But like you said, going to your point, like, what if there's other sources of income, but maybe that person, like, she might have to figure out what she's okay with. Like, maybe I can't date someone who's a full-time truck driver. And that's, you know, and I think those other things come into play. Because I have had friends who kind of had made comments kind of like, oh, he's this age and he does this.
Right.
Come on. You would think someone at this age would be here, right?
Right.
Like, what does that even mean, though? Like, when you say someone should be here, maybe that's what you think, and that's where you think where they should be, but that's not maybe how.
And here's the thing with dating and relationships that I think people don't often understand is, which to your point is, whatever that career is, it's not necessarily just about the money, but it's also about the presence, right? So I know people who make a lot of money who aren't going to be around, right? So they're busy, they're traveling. So you want them to be a parent, right? So how does that work now? When they're a parent, they're trying to, like, you know, work things out, and they're not there. You know, that person's on the road, or they're traveling, or they have to do speaking engagements, or whatever that may be. So I think it's nuanced. I know many times we say we want it all, but we have to sometimes be realistic about what our priorities are in dating. And I think that's a bigger, bigger thing that we need to really hone in on.
Yeah, I think that's a part of it too. Like, you know, it's people who make a lot of money also. Some people have to work a lot of hours. Like, I remember one time I dated a guy, he was a CPA, and to tell you it's tax season.
You never saw the brother, did you?
No, I mean, he was coming here for 20-hour days. The office would book a hotel. He'd just walk next door and go sleep at the hotel for a few hours and come back to the office.
Oh, wow.
And he literally said, like, that's January to March. That's my busy season. And then I had to think, like, okay, like, even if this person makes good money, how could I rate if we would have children together?
Yeah.
I would be by myself.
Right. And we can't leave you by yourself, right? No, you need some help.
Right. And so then you think it's the trade-off, right? Like, and I think you're right. It goes back to priorities where it's like, do you want someone who has work-life balance and you're okay taking less money, but maybe you guys might start your own business together. And I think how we were talking about, like, that's where what compromises are each person willing to make as you integrate your life. And that's why when we talk about, okay, at a year, when we talk about like salary and money and your career, that's when you can have those conversations. What does 3 years look like for you? What does 5 years look like for you? What does 10 years look like for you? So you guys can maybe try to align your goals.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you ultimately want to do? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, what are you trying to do accomplish in that relationship? Because I've seen people, I remember dating someone years ago, and she was like, listen, the way that my job is set up, I'm going to be able to have a world of a lot of money to take care of everything, but I don't have the time. So if I did marry you and we had kids, I would want you to maybe fall back some and help out with that or whatever like that, because of this position. Not that many women get it, not that many Black women get it, like all those kind of different things.
Okay.
And I know for a lot of brothers, we like, well, I gotta still do something now. I can't just be sitting at home, you know. I mean, that's just how a lot of us are built. But it's a team. It's a team. We're coming together as a team and trying to figure that out. So this is what I need your help with. Why do we ask what somebody does when we first meet them? And here's the thing, right? We talk about like the DMV happens a lot with that's question too. Mm-hmm. But I'm watching this show called Married at First Sight. I know a lot of Married at First Sight fans out there. Last season, y'all love it. Like, y'all love Married at First Sight. I have a pod coming up about Married at First Sight. But it's a guy named Chris on there. And literally after he marries Paige, this character Paige, they get married. And after they get married, everybody's wishing them well. Oh, whatever, you know, they walk off literally from getting married and go to the room and they do a little champagne toast. And the first question he asks her, he can ask a million questions, Holly, a million questions to get to know this woman who is his wife now. And he asks, what do you do? I just don't understand that. Like, I really don't.
I don't, and I think that I feel like that narrative just comes from, like, remember, like in college you had to pick a major, and it's like, oh, the people who picked, for example, psychology degrees, oh, they work at Walmart, you know, like they don't get jobs. And I think it's like that judgmental factor, like people are just very quick to judge people. You know, because in his mind, he's like, what if she says, oh, you know, I'm a janitor. Oh my gosh, I married a janitor? Like, I never was.
But the expert said a janitor was for you. I mean,
right? Like, but I think then it's in your head, it like kind of breaks down like, oh, that's not how I imagined my life. Like, I'm not supposed to be with a janitor, or, you know, like a janitor. And I'm just using that example because you never know. She could have a whole cleaning business. Residential,
in multiple markets. She got multiple buildings.
She's no, I'm not that kind of. You know, listen. I have contracts. You know. Yes. But no, that's what I'm saying. I think that it's that we're very quick to judge people in society. Oh, if you're not this, and then of course we say, oh, she said she was an attorney. Oh, yes, like I hit the jackpot. But you don't even you don't even know she's like a great person. She has a good personality.
And if she's an attorney, I've been to some attorneys. They gonna argue with you. I'll tell you that right now. You be like, listen here, counsel. I'm just trying to go to bed. I don't have time for that, counsel.
I object. We need to stop this conversation.
Exactly. I'm like, girl, we are not gonna argue about the guacamole. Okay, who wants it or who doesn't? You know what I mean? So I think that's a good point. I think also like with that, I feel like many people identify themselves by what they do, right? So it's not like this is my name is Brandon and this is what I do, or this. It's like this is who I am because of this. And I think that's the dangerous part too, because you can still be passionate and love what you do. I love what I do. I know you love what you do. You're passionate about it, but it doesn't define who you are. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because when that thing is taken away, or then what happens? You know what I mean? I think that's the danger part of it. But let me ask you this. I need some tips to my singles out here. What do you suggest a partner can do to be supportive and helping, like with upward mobility? Because I feel like a lot of times I hear, especially my ladies out there, like this guy, he's not on my financial level. His career doesn't match my level. All of those different things. So what? And I always ask, like, how can you support that? Like, just because somebody is not there now doesn't mean they don't have the potential to get there, right? And I get age, and I get all of that. Some people are late bloomers. Harrison Ford, I think he didn't get into acting until he was in his 40s, right? How did that work out, ladies? How did that work out? You know what I mean? So I'm just. So just give our audience some tips on that, on how they can be more supportive in their partner being, getting that better job or getting that opportunity or just knowing those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I was in a similar situation where actually my significant other, I actually graduated college before him, and then I got my new job, and he was just, it wasn't like slow. I think things in life had happened, and he was just, he just, in his mind, was behind earning his bachelor's degree. And as his significant other, I said, okay, we would always have these talks about every few months, like, what are your goals? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? So if you get a degree in this, what are your avenues? And so what I was like, at the time, I was like, well, since you want to hurry up and graduate, I was being supportive by saying, okay, well, we created a timeline where we're going to graduate him. Like, he was trying to graduate within a year. And so he was going to take a ton of classes. So I said, you don't have to work, and I said, okay, but once you graduate, we're going to have another plan so you can get a job within, so many months, and then be more self-sufficient. But that's what I would say. I think that just coming with that grace and understanding, and like being like, okay, if you want to do that, I would help him do research for the schools. Okay, now you graduated. Okay, the next step is let's find a job. And, I help him with his resume. I would look for jobs with like, hey, I found this job today on Indeed. Here, apply. And then, if he needs help with interview questions. But even if I wasn't in HR, get on Google and go find some questions, and we can put our brains together for like good answers. But I think that's just really kind of, for me, is always considering that grace and understanding that I would want, and the help that I would want. And so, I think it's just really, if you care about your partners, hearing them out, and how can you help with your strengths, to elevate them.
Come on, Holly, give the grace, give the elevation. I love that.
I'm telling you,
we all need the grace. We all need grace. Like, it's tough.
Life is hard enough. Like, I think, I'm not saying you need to just like pay all the bills and then he just is, be just mooching off you. That's not what I'm saying. Like, you want to see, obviously, like, action. Mind you, at the time, my significant was making all A's. You know what I mean? Like, he graduated in a year. So I think that he held up his part of the bargain, and so that's what I'm saying is, like, you do have to, and I'm a very like goal oriented, like I like lists and goals, and I think timelines, like the SMART goals, you know, like I think the timelines really do matter, because then that's when you can gauge, like, well, hey, he's not pulling his weight, so then it's really not maybe he just doesn't want to elevate, to like where I'm at. But if you see someone putting in the effort, that it's okay. Like, if maybe you're, you guys are, you're having a lot of success at this point in your life, and he might be catching up. But I think, that grace and understanding is very important in action.
I'm gonna tell you right now, as somebody who works with people and tries to help them with relationships and get them matched up, it is much easier to help somebody on their career path than to actually help somebody when it comes to like being a good person, having high character, wanting a commitment, following through on that commitment, chemistry, like all of those things. Those are way harder. So if you find somebody with that, like I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and she was saying that, like, she said, her husband like when they first met, he was not where she was, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he was like, as she kept supporting him and encouraging him, like he said, I really want to do this for you. Like not only for myself, but I'm excited that I can do this for my wife and our household and our family. And a lot of good and decent men, let me tell you, I'm talking to ladies real quick, Holly. I'm gonna tell a lot of good and decent men literally want to do that for their family. Like it's important to them. It drives them. It makes them. I talk to a lot of guys who have like, man, I probably wouldn't have done this or done that, but my wife, my kids, I wanted to do this for them. So I think sometimes, we miss out on those opportunities. I said good and decent men, ladies. I didn't say all the men. I didn't say the brothers you were dealing with last year who you should have left a long time ago.
Yeah.
But just good and decent men, I think they want to do those things. So, I mean, but to your point, is there a limit as far as time with that? What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. So we didn't end up yeah, I think the grace and understanding kind of went a little too far. And I think it was like, it was like, for in this situation, like once he graduated, it was like, okay, well, I don't know if I want to do this, or I don't know if I want to do this. And it was just like, you need to get a job. You know what I mean?
You need to do something, brother. You need something.
Yeah, like then it's kind of like, okay, I didn't have a problem for a year, but now this is extending, going almost into 2 years. And then, things start, when it's like, okay, you already have a degree. So then what is like, and this is mind you, we're talking almost 10 years ago.
Right.
So,
so you were like 18. Yeah.
No. My 30s. But no.
Right.
But I say that like I was young, but it was just kind of like at a certain point, like, okay, it's going into 2 years. If I'm telling you after a certain point, like, hey babe, I really need you to like get a job at this point.
Right. Step up.
Yeah, just step up. Then it just becomes beyond just like grades. Now it's like we're fighting about like money and like all the things that break relationships up.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of ended what happens, because I think like you said, how long do you accept like this is okay? And and I think you just have to, that's why I said timeline and action. And after a while I wasn't seeing the action anymore.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, we have these goals.
But I think you did a good job though. I think initially you put in like checkpoints. I always say every relationship needs checkpoints. Checking back in, hey, what's going on? Because something might have changed, a feeling might have changed. Like, hey, I want to do this instead, or how about we do? Like, I think that's part of a partnership. You have to have those checkpoints in order to finish the race, And I think a lot of times people don't do that. So even when it comes to dating, I've heard people say, yeah, when I first met this guy, he wanted kids. But then now we've been dating for a year, he doesn't want kids anymore. And I asked the question, did you check back in with him?
Yeah.
Like, when y'all having that conversation, did you just say on the first date, when y'all were having y'all little appetizer, you want kids, and then you never broach the subject again a year later? Like, you know what I mean? I think you need to check back in, because maybe he was like, yeah, I want to have kids, but I don't see it with you, and that's a hard thing, but it's something you need to know so you can make the informed decision, and I think that's something we all need. We just need checkpoints and checking back in and seeing where people are to do that. But you did a good job of that, because you were like, hey, I'm checking in, you were supportive. He just wasn't ready for all your greatness. That's all it was.
You realize, like, you have to meet people where they are, and maybe they're just not like that's. I'm trying to be here in life, and I think going to your point is sometimes, like you said, things just change. People change. And I think because we were so young, like 21, 22,
right.
Like you realize, like, I think we just grew in different directions on like what we wanted in life. And I think you go from kind of being like, Bonnie and Clyde, I'll do anything for you, ride or die, towards like, okay, so I'm trying to be a professional, and like have goals, and like maybe the approach and strategy is not the same, and you can talk about it and check in, and if it doesn't continue to kind of align, you sometimes end up parting ways.
Yes.
And I'm like one of the persons, like, I want everything to always work out, but hey, we talked about it, and after a while, it just, it wasn't working.
It wasn't working.
Right. Yeah.
And that's cool. But see, here's the thing though. The good news about something like that too is it at some point when it reaches that expiration date, you have time to move on. I think a lot of people like wallow in it and wait in it and then that person never changes, but because they continue to maybe be indifferent or I don't know. But I just think especially for men, most decent guys, the way we're built, we want to provide something. I always tell people I could date Oprah Winfrey, Holly, and between you and me and our audience, Oprah Winfrey makes more than me. Okay, but by a couple dollars, you know what I mean? Yeah. But a couple dollars, yeah. But no, I mean, but I would say like if I dated Oprah and we went on to some extravagant vacation, let's say to some villa that was $50,000 a night. Yeah. I can't afford $50,000 a night villa, Yeah. But I have dinner. You know what I mean? Or
drinks.
Yeah, drinks. I got you, Oprah. You want to swim with the dolphins tomorrow, girl? I got that. I got the activity, So I just feel like you at any level as a partner, you have to contribute something, you know what I mean, to your level.
Absolutely. And I think for example, I think Oprah is like a good example where sometimes like she's just going to be super successful in the relationship and you're okay kind of being more in the background, but because you bring something to the table, like maybe she has weaknesses in other areas, like she's not a great cook and she just doesn't, and it's not even to say it's like things. Maybe you're just really good at the finances and you like, here, babe, I made all this money. Please, can you make sure we can retire in 10 years? You know what I mean? And you've got all of that. And I think that's okay too. Yes. I think that some men are okay with that. Some women are okay with that. Some relationships have really good balance where both people are like in the spotlight and doing I think it just, like you said, those conversations and those check-ins
are vital.
They're vital. Yeah.
I always, when people look at problems, I look at opportunity. Like I feel like even in parenting, right? So people say, oh, well, that person is a night person. I'm a morning person. We're not going to work. I call that full coverage. Yeah. You know what I mean? like somebody's going to be on point to make sure the child is always going to be taken care of while they're awake, right? Or, or their best selves. So I just feel like a lot of times we miss opportunities like that because we just don't look at it from the right lens and that kind of thing. So tell us in closing, just tell us how we can find you, how people can contact you for all of the great things you do to make their careers go, because I know right now the climate of the country is tough when it comes to the job market and those kind of things. So we have a lot of people who are looking. Just tell us how we can find you, how you can help them.
Yeah, so you can go to my website at www.hollynoon.com. You can find me at Instagram at Holly_Noon, and you can find my YouTube channel, HR Connection with Holly Noon. So
yes, all right.
HR, everything.
Everything. She does a little bit of everything. Well, we appreciate that. I know that you're a busy person, and I'm glad that we got an opportunity to converse for a little bit and help some of these singles out here to not ask that question anymore. How much do you make? If you ask it, wait, take your time and go from there. And I think good things will happen. So that's been, we got our guest, Holly Noon. Shout out to her. This has been your boy, Brandon. This has been Kickback Conversations, and we'll see you till next time. Peace.